In this video, we are going to be touching a lot on imagination, but more importantly, mental diet, right? We're going to touch on faith specifically more than anything else, right? Faith is going to be the main topic on this video, but that involves mental diet, right? Because as you already know, wherever you place your faith, that's going to be your experience. And we're going to touch on this in greater detail in this video. So I intend that you guys enjoy this and a lot of you will learn. And that being said, let's just jump into it. As you already know, I'm Michael from EmbodyTheState.com. And all I ask from you guys is if this video has helped you in any way, brought any value to you, just hit that like button so therefore it reaches other people who are struggling just like you guys, okay? So let's just dive into it. The first thing I want to touch on is, the quote, according to your faith, so be it unto you, right? That right there is something that I share with everybody that I talk to about the law, right? Especially when they're having issues with the 3D, with the, what the circumstances, their mental diet and things like that. Because of course we see with our eyes, our senses, and we allow it sometimes to infiltrate us, to kind of poison the well. And I say allow because it's a choice. It's not happening to you. It just means in that moment you're viewing things from a different perspective. And that's the beautiful part about, where we place our faith, because when you're in a negative state and you're reacting to what's in front of you, of course, you're placing your faith in the bad, right? And when you think about it logically, what it makes sense, put your faith into the positive or to the fearful things, right? Which would you rather experience? And of course, we're all going to say, oh, the positive for sure. But why don't you do it? Right? And that's where the issue comes in, right? I have a lot of people that I work with, right? From all walks of life. I even work with certain coaches. And even certain people that I work with that come to me and are kind of having issues with the 3D, that's a quote that I bring up often because it gets you thinking about something so simple but so factual. So wherever you're placing your faith, it's going to be your experience pretty much. And that's what I take from that quote. And that's just to keep it short, right? You can interpret it however you wish. But if I am accepting, so if I look at my 3D, and believe me, I am not immune to the 3D. I am not immune to, reacting. I don't live my life 100% in the state of the wish fulfilled 24/7 and nothing ever bothers me. Believe me, there are some experiences that I've gone through and that I have in my life that, trust me, are very hard to mental diet. And it's funny because even someone that, that even knows what I know and has been studying the law for years and years and applying it and experimenting, even I can see how the brain works. And it's so interesting because I understand I can still change whatever I want. I understand that my experience would be whatever I want it to be, but I have to buckle down first and start deciding where I'm going to place my faith. So when it comes to, that quote, according to your faith, so be it unto you, I ask you guys, where have you been placing your faith? Where do you think your faith is when you are looking at your 3D and then you are then putting yourself in that state? You're allowing yourself to be poisoned. You're allowing that well of yours, that pure well of yours to be poisoned by the 3D that you created, right? That you reflected. Instead of looking at it from the perspective of, this is my manifestation, whether I like it or not, and that's okay. But just because it's something I don't like, I don't have to allow it to keep triggering me, right? And of course, your brain is going to keep telling you, focus on this. Let's focus on the bad. Oh, but this happened. And yes, I know you want this. And yes, you're aware of the law, but your brain's going to go, oh, this sucks right now. Let's keep focusing on the 3D. And it's not fun for anyone, right? Trust me, I sympathize with you guys. I've had experiences where it's like, even though I know the law and I know that I can, make the changes within myself to then reflect a different reality and experience a different reality, I still found my mind going places that I didn't want it to go. And to me, when that happens, that's interesting because those are things that I look at as moments to grow. Those are, in other words, little bumps in the road that kind of elevate you. I like to, as Neville calls it, mastery of the mind as well. And that's what I refer to it as too. I like to have these little bumps because it's what helps you master your mind, right? It helps the mastery of it. And yes, at the beginning, I know it's going to be hard that when you look at your 3D, that you're going to be experiencing all the scary stuff and everything looks like hell. And, it's like, damn, I really got to, in other words, change myself to change this. But then the doubts creep in. Can I do it? Can I do it in time? What if it doesn't work? What if my SP gets engaged? What if, the business doesn't, bring the money I want it to have, or XYZ, you name it, doesn't matter, right? And same thing, like I said, you can apply anything I say in these videos to whatever goal, finances, love, you name it, okay? So when the doubts come in, and you are aware that these doubts are there, a lot of mistakes that I see my clients and including viewers making is they never really bother to kind of look at those thoughts and look at the 3D from the perspective of, okay, if I know that I'm the creator, if I understand that I am connected to this thing much greater than myself that knows things that I do not know, as Neville would say, as a person that's keyed low in earth, and this thing that I'm connected to has all the power in the world, has all the abundance in the world. Literally, there's not one single question that you can ask it that you will be able to stump it on. There's not a problem you can bring to it and it's going to say, nope, I can't do it. I did all this. I created the world. I did this. I did that. All these intricacies, but nope, guess what? It's too hard for me. I can't get the SP back. I can't bring money to you. I can't solve your debt. I can't do this and that and blah, blah, blah. You guys have to realize it's in the moments, like I mentioned, when you notice the little bumps in the road in your internal world and you start realizing that your awareness keeps going to the negative, to the things you don't like. It's those moments where you practice mastery of the mind. It's in those moments where you have to decide, okay, am I going to, first of all, before I even get into what I was going to say, actually, it's realize I'm only feeling bad about this thing because there's a belief that is even allowing me to feel bad about this, right? And your job is to figure out what that conscious belief is. And it's not, when I say this, I don't want you thinking it's like some subconscious belief that's sabotaging you or like there's something hidden that you have to heal or fix, blah, blah, blah. That's all BS, guys. No source teacher is going to tell you that you have, to find this hidden thing in their subconscious that's sabotaging you. It's conscious, and you can easily find out what conscious belief you're holding on to in that moment. In other words, where you're putting your faith that's even allowing you to feel that way. Because remember, when you feel like crap and the 3D is in your face and you are just continuing to return, in other words, mental diet, to the negative again and again and again and again, guess what eventually happens? It becomes who you are, and it becomes the perspective you view life from with a knowingness, and eventually, you keep manifesting more of it, and you will keep experiencing the same thing. And that's why a lot of you guys are kind of stuck. You're in the middle because you do good, you practice, you're returning to the state that you prefer to experience. You keep becoming the person who has the desire within, and that's fine. But then, of course, the mind goes right back, right? And that's where you got to be careful about where you place your faith, right? And that's the part that kind of brings me to the next point, which is, where you place your faith is really, I guess it's really up to you. There's really nowhere, there's nobody outside of you that's affecting you. You're the one that has to make the decision, right? If you know that where you place your faith is up to you and you can understand, okay, how does the law work? The law works this way. Like, for example, my beliefs are what shape my reality. So is my reality what I want it to be? No. Okay, if it's not what I want it to be, then what do I have to do to change that? What do I have to do within myself to kind of reflect the reality and experience what I prefer? Okay, I have to start deciding that regardless of what's in front of me, that I have to start practicing taking my mind to where I would prefer it to go. And I have to also start practicing proper mental diet regarding when I am aware of the 3D, when I am catching myself going straight and putting my faith into the negative again and again and again, that I have to realize I have to change my perspective that's making me feel so bad when I keep choosing, to put my faith into fear, right? And when you put your faith into fear, of course, it's going to become more natural and easy. Why? Because you're returning to that state again and again. And therefore, you're going to find yourself going over and over again. And it's going to be so much easier to go there naturally than it is to the positive state of the wish fulfilled. And that is how manifesting works regarding mental diet. It's wherever you continue to place your faith. In other words, to believe, to accept, to kind of trust, to have that knowing, right? Regardless of what you see, right? That's what's going to become who you are, which then reflects and it becomes your 3D experience, right? So you have to practice realizing the moment you become aware of something that's bothering you, whether, SP did something or, the money is not coming in and more bills keep coming in and you logically can't think, how am I going to get out of this debt? How am I even going to make the money? I'm only making, $2,000 a month and I owe $8,000, $10,000, $20,000. Trust me, it's in those moments where, if you go back to what I mentioned, are the little bumps to practice mental mastery. If you know that, for example, you have, $2,000 a month income and your debt is $8,000 and it keeps going up and up and up every month, just a little chunk, guess what? The regular person is going to be like, how am I going to get out of this? But a person who knows the law is going to look at it from the perspective of, that's not up to me to figure out. My job is to put my faith in what I prefer, to put my faith on what I want to experience, to trust that this thing I'm connected to, in other words, the Almighty, Source, God, whatever you want to call it, this thing that I'm a piece of, that exists within me, that's a part of me, that I'm connected to directly, I have a direct line to it, that is going to figure it out. There's not one thing that it can't solve, and there's no expense that it can't, afford. So if I really do trust that, and I really do know that it has all the answers that I don't, and therefore I'm just gonna allow it to figure it out, and instead I live my life just trusting that, and understanding that what I'm going to in imagination and then accepting as a fact, where I'm placing my faith, is eventually going to be my experience because it's what I keep returning to, then you can walk in peace. You can kind of dissolve the fear, right? But you first have to start deciding, where are you going to place your faith? And that's where mental diet comes in. So for people that are struggling with money or SP issues, right? Especially if you're dealing with, let's say a breakup, right? And of course, you don't see the results right away, right? You're heartbroken, and every time you think of your person, you go straight to looking at them from the perspective of, I'm single and we're broken up and things aren't changing and I wish things were different now. It's in those moments, guys. Then trust me, I know it's hard, but you can do it. It's in those moments. And by the way, when I say I know it's hard, keep in mind, it doesn't have to be hard, right? I just know that in the moments that the wounds are fresh, it's often hard for people, but some people it might not be hard. So you don't have to accept that, by the way. But when the wounds are fresh, your mind's gonna go to the negative again and again, right? And that's where the mistake lies. If you're able to practice cutting that off, right? It's like a cancer. You wanna just chop that piece off so it doesn't spread. And you do this by practicing, hey, I just realized my mind went to the problems, to the things I don't like, and now I'm accepting it as real. And as Neville, says in past lectures, he tells people, especially a student of his, they came to ask him for help in the past, he explained the problem, and Neville just smiled and told him, like, just don't accept it. And then the guy repeated himself because he literally thought Neville didn't understand it, and he's like, don't expect it. Like don't accept it, sorry. And, that gets lost on so many people. It's like, okay, I myself have been someone who, and to trust me, I'm not even perfect myself. Even to this day, I still make mistakes with mental diet, but I catch it and eventually I change myself, right? And that's the part that a lot of people don't do for like a long time. I'm talking months, years, you name it. And it's your job to realize, okay, when I'm looking at the negative thing that's bothering me, the debt, the breakup, the lack of health, whatever it may be, like someone suffering, blah, 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 and you put your problem in there and then this applies to it. Then you realize, okay, if I keep going back to it and then I allow myself to accept it, that's me putting my faith in it. And therefore, it's going to be my continued experience, in other words, right? It's going to be the thing that I keep experiencing. But I'm going to keep doing that while still hoping and wanting a different life. And then I'm going to be upset I get no results 8 months later, right? And who the hell, who wants to live like that? Nobody. So it's up to you guys to realize when I am putting my awareness on the negative, I have to catch that and instead make that thought more obedient to myself. I have to kind of guide my mind. And this is what mental mastery is. It's being able to look at your 3D, no matter how scary and how crappy it is, and to understand that piece of source of God that exists within me, that I'm a piece of, right, is the thing that's going to solve all my issues, my higher self, right? That's what I call it. So I know my higher self is going to fix everything. I know that they have the capability to. I know that there's not an issue that I can deal with, in other words, that I can manifest, that I can't change. I know that for a fact, right? So if I know this and I trust this, my job is to remember, okay, then how do I change this sooner than later? It's catching the awareness. As soon as I'm aware of the breakup, as soon as I'm aware of, the negative in my life, the circumstances bothering me, and then I start catching my brain going to this scenario, that scenario happening, and what if this doesn't happen, and what if that already happened, blah, blah, blah. Keep inserting all the crap you want and just put it together. And at the end of that, you realize, okay, if I keep putting my faith in that, then it's going to continue. But wait a minute, if I catch myself instead, and I remember the rules to the game. And the rules are, you forgot that you were literally a piece of God a fragment of this almighty, that you are a manifestation of your soul, and you get to control this piece that you're connected to, this power, through your mastery of your mind. And if that's the case, then it makes no sense to continue going to where you don't want and then feeling it real, accepting it, having that knowing, right? And what does make sense is to practice observation of that and to practice indifference, right? And it might not be easy at the beginning for some of you, but practice looking at things from the eyes of the creator, right? Because remember, you are all creators in your personal reality. And instead, once you do that, you might notice that you're going to start feeling better. You're going to realize, wait a minute, does doing this serve me? And if the answer is no, then when you logically are looking at that from that perspective, your mind's not going to want to continue doing it, right? It might continue a little bit at first, but when you keep returning to the perspective of understanding who you are and this creator, this power you have as a creator and all these things, then you realize it makes no sense to continue looking at my 3D and then allowing my mind to dwell on the negative again and again and again. And instead, I'm going to place my faith where I want it, right? Because according to my faith, so be it unto me, right? So that's the thing. It's, if I want to solve whatever problem, XYZ, I have to decide when I'm thinking of XYZ and I'm going to the negative, it's in that moment I have to realize I'm mental dieting for the things I don't want. And instead, I have to then guide my mind gently to the things I prefer. You're not flipping thoughts, I'm not referring to that, but it's more so looking at things with understanding and then kind of holding the hand of your mind and then guiding it to where you want to take it. And you want to take it to where creation is finished, right? Where the realities are, where things are the way you wish they were, right? Where you have that love, where you have that money, where you have that health, where the people that you care about are healed from whatever you're trying to help them with, whether it's financial issues, love life, you name it. And you have to realize when you are peeking into those other realities, you're peeking into what refers to as creation is finished. You're peeking into what exists and what's possible for you to select. So, in other words, knowing this, does it make sense now that every time you catch your brain, and trust me, you can all do this, when you finish watching this video, spend the rest of your day or night, every time you think of your desire, see where it goes naturally. And if you notice it goes somewhere that you don't like, then ask yourself, does it make sense that I keep returning here, but then I want to get the results that are opposite of where here is? And if the answer is, yeah, okay, no, it doesn't make sense, but yes, I understand that now it makes no sense, so why would I do that? That's how you have to look at it. It's like, if you catch your brain going somewhere you don't want, bring your, in other words, your mind to where you want it and place your faith in that. Trust in that more, right? Identify with that more. And that's the thing that screws up so many people. And you guys got to realize that, no one in imagination can take anything from you. Literally nobody. There's not a single person on this planet that can do anything to you or take anything from you in your imagination. And that's the fact, right? Think about it. Am I able to go into your imagination and make you think the worst? No. It's you. It's all a conscious choice. And in your imagination, you can experience love, you can experience abundance, you can experience whatever it is you're trying to manifest. You can do anything you want because you can focus on what is already created. But at the same time, if you are lazy and you don't tame your mind and you don't practice mental mastery, guess what's going to happen? You're going to start allowing your imagination to just run wild. Your mind is just going to do what it wants. It's going to start returning to the breakup. It's going to start returning to the debt and to the lack of money and to how things aren't changing. And is that a life you guys want to live? And I would assume the answer is no. But guess what makes more sense? It's, where am I going to place my faith? Whenever you catch your brain focusing on the negative, start asking yourself, where is my faith? And if your faith is in something that you don't want to experience, ask yourself, does it make sense to be doing this if I don't want to experience this further? And once again, keep looking at things logically. And I'm redundant on that intentionally because you guys got to realize, mental diet is not this hard magical process. It's catching your awareness when you want something to, in other words, to change in your 3D reality, but you're doing it from the understanding of the rules to the law of assumption, to the rules of the game, right? And how the universe works. And if you understand that what state you return to the most becomes your dominant dwelling state, which then becomes who you are, in other words, your new self-concept, your new belief system, then you realize, okay, it makes zero sense if I want my results as soon as possible to keep going to where I don't want to go. But guess what does make sense? To go to where I would prefer. And guess where I prefer? Fulfillment. I prefer love. I prefer happiness. I prefer abundance. So it's your guys' job when this video ends, every time you catch yourself thinking of your desires and your 3D circumstances, where does your brain go? Does your mind go to what you don't prefer? And if so, then ask yourself, what benefit does it give you by staying there and returning there 100 times a day? And when you realize the answer is no, then tell yourself or ask yourself, okay, so what does benefit me? And you're going to realize the answer is putting your awareness and your faith on the things that you would prefer to experience. And that's where you guys can become masters of your mind. And it just takes a little bit of practice, right? This video is not something that's like giving you like hidden knowledge and information. It's like mental diet is so basic and I would call it like minimalist, because it's literally just making choices and deciding what perspective you're going to view things from, right? But if you're not going to make those choices and you're not going to view things from the perspective of the law of assumption, and instead continue to view things from from the mind of a person who doesn't know the law, from the mind of a person who kind of doesn't trust in their power and isn't looking at life from a creator, you're going to continue to make a habit of returning to the negative. And then you're going to really be in a rut, right? Because remember, whatever you return to becomes natural for you. That's why for a lot of people watching, it's really easy to continue returning to lack, because you guys do it so naturally. It's just like breathing for you guys, right? And if that applies to you, whoever's watching, then really let this video sink in. Watch it again if you have to. But ask yourself, yeah, wait a minute, who is forcing me in my imagination to go where I don't want? When I'm aware that I'm thinking of the problem and I know that it's not going to benefit me, like who's stopping me from placing my awareness on other things and observing the things that are bothering me from a different perspective, from the perspective of a creator? Who's forcing me? And the answer is nobody. In your imagination, you are in full control. There is nothing anyone can do to you, and there is nothing you cannot experience. So that's what I want you guys, pretty much that's what I want you guys to ask yourself is, in my imagination, who's in control? And the answer is always you. The answer has always been you. There is nobody that can affect you, right? It's your personal reality. Your reality is not my personal reality. I can't reach into your reality and just screw up your life for you, unless you give me that power, unless you're like, oh my God, he's teaching the law. He must know so much more than me. And therefore, he must have some powers that I don't. So of course he can ruin my life if he says he's going to manifest it. It's still you manifesting it, because you're believing in that. You're placing your faith in the fear. And then because of that, then things are going to go south. And then you're going to be like, oh, wow, Michael's so powerful, right? But in my reality, I didn't do anything, right? I'm only in charge of my reality. So take charge of your personal reality, guys, and start realizing it's not a scary thing. It's not something that you got to be worried about when it comes to your 3D circumstances. I know at the beginning it can be hard, and trust me, I get it, that the circumstances can be so dire and so severe that it's hard to take your awareness off it, that you find it so easy and so natural to focus on the bad things. But guess what? You can change that by practicing catching yourself focusing on the negative and instead going to the positive. And when you start practicing that day by day, little by little, guess what? It gets easier, guys. And yes, it might not be like an instant thing on the first 5 hours of practicing that. And it shouldn't feel like something that's tiring. It shouldn't feel like this thing that's like this big, grand, issue that, it's like this, like you're doing a second job. You shouldn't lay down at night and be like, oh, that was so hard. Like, that should not be you. Mental dieting is just snapping your fingers. It's just bop, bop, bop. It's just over and over. It's just deciding, wait, I'm aware of the thing I don't like, and that's because this is a habit. I keep looking at my 3D. I keep forgetting how the law works. I'm not accepting and putting my faith in who I am as a creator and what the spirit or soul is, and what I'm connected to, and so on and so on. Instead, I'm putting my faith as someone, in other words, in the reality, as someone that's reactionary, that just things happen to, right? And that's a crappy way to live. You guys are not here to experience misery and sadness and to just have desires that you'll never get. You guys aren't here for that. You're here to learn, to grow, to expand, to experience things, right? And that's what you're supposed to do. So why not live the best life possible, right? Why not focus on, hey, wait a minute, okay, it's really not a hard ask. All Michael's saying is, whenever I'm thinking of the thing that's bothering me and I notice that I'm reacting to it, I should ask myself, like, what am I believing that's allowing me to even feel this negative way, right? And start looking at things logically, right? And when you look at things logically from the perspective of how the law works, you realize it makes no sense. And if it makes no sense, you're not going to want to do it as often. And instead, start practicing going straight to where you prefer. Start practicing going to the realities that are already created. Go to those worlds where things are already happening, right? Where you already have the success, the height manifested, the health change, the SP, the love you want, the relationship that you've been craving, right? The breakup was fixed, the abundance is there, the debt is paid, the money's coming in, blah, 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 you name it. But start practicing pretty much. It's like, decide, hey, okay, from when I wake up to when I fall asleep, who's in charge? Who's in charge? It's you. And if you're in charge, guess what? Then why are you allowing yourself to slack? Do you not want success? Do you not want happiness? Do you not want love? And I guarantee you, if you're watching this, you're gonna say, wait, yeah, I mean, I do want all that stuff, right? But if some of you are watching this, you're like, yeah, I don't want that stuff, and I want to be miserable, then I wish you guys all the best for that case, right? But, in my opinion, you'd be much happier with, an abundant, loving life, with love surrounding you and things like that. So just remember that, guys. Don't be so hard on yourself. Understand, if something is fresh to you and it's hard to mental diet at the beginning, that's okay. It'll get easier as each day passes. But for those of you that have been on the journey for a while and the wounds may not be as fresh, understand, things can change like that. Literally, things can change so fast if you start making decisions of, okay, what am I gonna place my awareness on when I realize I'm aware of the negative things, right? Where am I gonna go and put my faith into, when I realize that I'm thinking of pretty much my desires, or I'm aware of what I'm aware of, as I tell some of my clients, right? It's practicing, like, what are you aware of, right? Start seeing where your brain goes. Start seeing what happens naturally within you, right? And that's the beautiful part about being human, is we get to test this out and practice things and see things for ourselves. And you guys will see very easily, hey, wait a minute, I noticed that I went to the negative like 50 times today. What the hell? And then guess what? Okay, now you're aware that you go there, and it's going to be easier to catch it when you kind of practice catching your awareness on the topics that you want to kind of change or manifest, right? And then you realize, okay, let's start doing that, but for the positive. Why mental diet for the negative? Start mental dieting for the positive, okay, guys? So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was kind of a lot, kind of crammed into one, and that's why I kind of went a little all over the place here with you guys, because honestly, like, we're already, about 3 minutes away from 30 minutes in, and there's still so much I could say. So I might even make a part 2 about this. But just keep in mind, the whole point of this video is to show you that, like, start catching yourself. It's like, make proper habits. Like, stop being lazy. In other words, is what I'm saying. No one's controlling your mind. It's you. You're in full control. I'm not doing anything to you. It's your personal reality. So take responsibility, right? Take charge and decide who you're going to be when you're kind of, craving your desire, and decide how you're going to look at life when you're realizing that you're aware of the negative that's bothering you. Why is it bothering you? What are you believing that it bothers you? Do you not believe that you're the creator? Do you not believe that, what you return to the most is going to become who you are? Because it's the frequency of how often you return to something that dictates, how it changes who you are and reflects, right? And that's how you experience the wish fulfilled. Neville talks about this in multiple books. He tells you it's frequently returning that matters, not holding a feeling. It's not about faking things and pretending that your 3D is changed and trying to convince yourself, like, oh, it's here, my SP's back, and I have to just believe that they're here, even though, like, I know that they're not here. I have to just force it and be delusional. It's not about that. It's about understanding it all exists inside of you. So start having fun, guys. Realize, yes, the 3D may suck now, but it's going to change. And why is it going to change? Because I know that I'm going to change and practice mental dieting now. And if you know that you're going to practice mental dieting, and you know that you're going to make more effort towards returning to fulfillment versus lack, then guess what's going to happen eventually? What you've been returning to the most is going to be the reflection you experience. So remember that, guys. And if you made it this far in, I love you all very much. I intend that this video helps. And thank you, everyone, for all the support and your continued love. And I wish you guys a good night and a good morning, depending when you watch this, okay? Take care, guys.